Rita, if we're talking hyperbole, which of course is Julia Gillard's pronunciation of a word that means massive exaggerations, what better time to talk about Kevin Rudd?
Well, yes, Kevin Rudd, he had a go at Julia Gillard because she got some coverage in the News Limited papers that was complimentary, and Kevin Rudd, with his Murdoch derangement syndrome, couldn't cope with that. So he essentially denigrated her to have a go at the News Limited papers. I mean, the man is just such a bitter fool. But he's been writing again, and he now claims that very few people apparently have made the connection between climate, biodiversity, habitat loss, and the outbreak of infectious diseases. So apparently, perhaps...
Climate change, COVID. Whee! James, what do you reckon?
Well, I mean, look, the thing about Kevin Rudd is I think that he's just absolute proof of the old adage that money can't buy happiness. This is a guy who just bought himself a $19 million house right on the beach up in Queensland, so I guess maybe the sea rise won't be happening in that particular postcode, but also just, you know, the idea that all these years later he is still angry at Julia Gillard. I mean, forget about the News Corp papers, that he is still bitter about that. You know, you imagine that Malcolm Turnbull will be calling up and saying, you know, Kevin, mate, you just got to give it up.
In the same article, Rita, he said something about the experience of the global financial crisis shows that it's impossible to design an economic recovery that is good for the planet. He's referring to pink bats. He's still on about pink bats. Can you believe it? A decade later. Anyway.
He just cannot have any sort of acknowledgement that perhaps I made a couple of mistakes.
No.
Perhaps the world isn't out to get me. My own colleagues knifed me because I stuffed up. But no, it's all a grand conspiracy theory in Kevin's little mind. It really is rather sad, and I wish someone close to him would say, enough, Kevin, just go enjoy the beach house and get on with life.
James, apparently people who refuse to wear masks are stupid. Talk us through this one.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, look, this is one of those regular academic pseudoscience reports that we hear from time to time. You know, conservative voters are less likely to be smart. Trump voters are less likely to be smart. You know, always just talking about how smart their own side is. And now we have a report out of England that people who refuse to wear a mask apparently have a lower cognitive ability, allegedly. Now, the thing I would say to this here is that, you know, with this whole coronavirus thing, Rowan and Rita, we have seen one side, the supposedly smart side, only be able to hold one thing in their mind, you know, cases, versus the other side, which has said, no, we have to hold the disease, the economy, people's mental health, and all sorts of other things also in mind when we figure out how to respond to it. So tell me, which side is more clever at being able to hold multiple ideas together at the same time? I'm going to put it to you that it's not the people who are just focusing on the one thing and the one solution.
Let's grab some Weekly Wokeley. Now, you said earlier, James, your favourite saying, go woke, go broke. We've got this bloke, go woke, get kicked in the face, appears to be the latest
yeah,
one.
Look, I mean, it's a bit sad, but Terrence Monahan, he is the top-ranking uniformed police officer in New York, a big chief in the NYPD. Anyway, a month ago, there was footage of him tearfully taking a knee, hugging protesters, saying we're all in this together. And a month later, well, he's there at some event with protesters, and he gets his head cracked open. So there you go.
There you go. I'm not sure what John Lennon would call that, something or other. Rita, Ricky Gervais says comedy is dead.
Well, yes, he's saying political correctness is going to kill comedy. Risky comedy is dead. This is something that Mel Brooks has also been saying. And, you know, he wonders whether The Office would be made today. It's hard to think that, you know, The Office, it's not that old, but probably today the culture warriors would find all sorts of issues with it, all sorts of problematic themes, and not enough diversity, or not enough female roles, or jokes that are lampooning people that shouldn't be lampooned. It really is quite sad.
and definitely a sign that the left will fail in the end. But God, they're a humorless bunch. Thank God there are people, common, everyday people out there who aren't on the woke side of politics.